The council chamber shone with the light of countless crystals, a grand structure designed to remind everyone inside that the Galactic Council had endured for millennia. Delegates filled the seats, their voices blending into a low hum of conversation. For them, today's gathering was nothing more than another routine matter. A minor species, Earth, had made demands. It was laughable. It was unworthy of debate, yet protocol required that the envoy be heard. The human representative stood alone at the center platform. His appearance was striking not because of wealth or grandeur, but because of its simplicity. While other envoys glittered in robes woven with threads of gold or wore ceremonial armor meant to impress, the human wore only a modest black suit. He looked out of place among the dazzling splendor, but his eyes carried an intensity that could not be ignored. When the chamber fell silent, he spoke. His voice was clear, steady, and without hesitation. "Withdraw your fleets from Sol. This is Earth's final ultimatum." The words hung in the air like a spark waiting for fuel. For a moment, there was quiet. Then the chamber erupted in laughter. A dozen species chuckled in their own languages, the sound overlapping into a chorus of disbelief. The human did not flinch. He waited. One counselor leaned forward, his scaled body catching the light. His forked tongue flicked in amusement as he spoke. "And what will your kind do if we do not? Your worlds are few. Your fleets are small. You cannot hope to challenge the council." The human envoy looked at him with a steady gaze. "Then your fleets will not return." This time the chamber did not erupt with immediate laughter. There was a pause, a heartbeat of silence, before the room broke again into mockery. The presiding Archon raised his hand, and slowly the noise settled. His towering figure leaned forward, his expression both stern and indulgent, like a teacher addressing a student who had spoken out of turn. "You overstep, human. The Council does not yield to threats, especially from a species so young. The Ninth Fleet will remind your world of its place." The envoy did not argue. He did not plead. Instead, he gave the smallest nod, as though acknowledging words already expected. He glanced around the room, his eyes calm but filled with a weight none of the council could understand, and then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The chamber doors closed behind him, sealing in the laughter that followed. Far across the stars, the Ninth Fleet prepared to move. It was one of the most feared forces in the galaxy, a vast armada of more than 3,000 ships. From colossal dreadnoughts bristling with weapons to swift frigates that could scout and strike, the fleet was the Council's iron fist. To command it was considered one of the highest honors in the galaxy. On the flagship, Grand Admiral Deora studied the orders. His crest of silver feathers glowed under the lights of the bridge, and his eyes burned with confidence. "Set course. For Sol system," he commanded. "We will make this human threat a lesson." Around him, officers obeyed without hesitation. The Ninth Fleet entered slipspace, its countless vessels vanishing into streams of light. In the Council's eyes, the outcome was inevitable. Earth would be humbled. The envoy's words would be remembered only as a moment of foolishness. Yet back on Earth, the mood was far different. The envoy stepped into a secure chamber deep within the Directorate's headquarters. A circle of military leaders awaited him, their faces lit by the glow of tactical displays. They watched him closely as he entered. "It is done," he said, simply. They laughed. A silence followed. Then one commander, his voice edged with steel, replied, "Then the Ninth Fleet is already finished. They just don't realize it yet." The envoy nodded. In the quiet that followed, hidden fleets stirred at the edges of the solar system. Ships cloaked in shadows powered their engines, waiting for the signal. Humanity had endured centuries of being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. That time was over. The galaxy had chosen to test Earth's resolve, and the Ninth Fleet would soon discover what that choice meant. The void of slip space split open as the Ninth Fleet emerged at the edge of Sol system. Thousands of vessels shimmered into normal space, their hulls reflecting the pale light of distant stars. The fleet stretched across the darkness like a moving wall of steel, each ship pulsing with power. It was a sight designed to inspire awe and crush resistance. To the admiral and his officers, it was proof of the Council's invincibility. Grand Admiral de Yora stood at the command dais of the flagship, a massive dreadnought whose silhouette alone could eclipse a moon. His eyes swept across the tactical displays, where Earth's systems spun in miniature, the sun blazing at the center, planets circling in silent paths. The admiral expected resistance. He expected fleets gathered in desperation, planetary shields raised, and human vessels arrayed in defense. Instead, the display revealed almost nothing. No armadas waited at the system's edge. No war fleets rose from Mars, Jupiter, or Earth itself. Only a scattering of small patrol craft drifted across the void, too insignificant to register as a threat. The admiral frowned, tapping a clawed finger against the edge of the display. "Scouts," he ordered, "spread across the system. I want full reports from every orbital path. Search the asteroid belt, the moons, the outer ice worlds. Leave nothing unseen." Orders rippled outward. Frigates and corvettes broke formation, streaking into the system with engines blazing. Their sensor arrays swept wide arcs, searching for hidden fleets. As minutes turned into hours, reports began to return. "Minimal resistance," one officer announced. "Mars holds defensive satellites but no large-scale military presence. Jupiter stations show only civilian activity. Earth's orbital defenses appear active but dormant. Energy readings are lower than expected." The bridge filled with uneasy murmurs. Dormant defenses? Unmanned patrols? It did not make sense. Humanity had issued an ultimatum, a bold challenge to the Council itself. Yet here, in their home system, there was no sign of preparation. "They are surrendering," one of the junior admirals suggested with a thin smile. Their words were desperate, but they knew they could not resist. Perhaps they hoped to negotiate. The abang suggestion brought laughter to the bridge, though it did little to ease the growing tension. De Yora did not laugh. He narrowed his eyes at the display, studying Earth's orbit. The planet itself was alive with light and movement, but nothing unusual appeared. Civilian traffic, orbital stations, and the faint glow of defense platforms, circling in neat patterns. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "but something is missing." Before his officers could respond, a new report came through. "Admiral, one of our scout groups has vanished. No signals, no distress calls. They entered the Oort cloud, then ceased transmission entirely." The bridge fell silent. Ships did not simply vanish, not without leaving wreckage or signals. De Yora tightened his grip on the railing. "Send another group," he ordered. "Double their escort. Find out what happened." The second group departed, engines flaring as they crossed into the distant reaches of the system. Hours passed again. When their expected signal failed to return, the silence grew heavier. "Two groups. Gone," a captain whispered. "Without a trace." De Yora's crest bristled, though his voice remained firm. "The humans are attempting to play tricks, but tricks do not win wars. Prepare the fleet to advance. We will burn their defenses from orbit and demand their surrender." "Thy..." Officers nodded, but unease lingered. The Ninth Fleet was unmatched, yet the darkness around Sol seemed to swallow ships whole. Whispers spread among crews. Perhaps the humans had allies. Perhaps there were weapons unknown to the Council. Perhaps, but such thoughts were silenced. Orders were orders. The fleet advanced toward Earth, engines blazing like a sea of stars. Far below, on Earth's surface, command centers monitored every movement. Hidden in the shadows of the Oort cloud, deep in the asteroid belt, and beneath the icy shells of distant moons, Earth's fleets waited. They remained unseen, cloaked in silence, watching as the greatest armada in the galaxy marched straight into the trap. The Ninth Fleet cut through the solar system like a blade. Thousands of ships moved in precise formation, their engines glowing against the darkness. To any observer, it was a display of overwhelming might, an armada so vast that no single world could hope to stand against it. Yet beneath the grandeur, unease was beginning to grow. Reports filtered in from the scattered scout groups, and too many of those reports were incomplete. Some returned with only fragments of data, half-finished, sentences before the transmission cut into static. Others did not return at all. At first, these losses were attributed to navigation errors or mechanical faults, but as the numbers grew, explanations became harder to accept. On the flagship's bridge, Grand Admiral Dayora stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. Around him, his officers whispered in low voices, the confidence of earlier days beginning to fray. 3 more patrols have failed to report in, an officer said, her voice tight. That makes 7 groups lost. 7, Dayora repeated, quietly. His eyes narrowed, his expression hard. And still no wreckage, no signals, no survivors? Nothing, Admiral. They vanish as though they never existed. The silence that followed was heavy. In all his years of service, Dayora had never seen anything like it. Battles left debris fields. Even the most devastating ambushes left traces, distress calls, emergency beacons, fragments of hull plating. Ships did not simply vanish without a sound. Order the remaining scouts to return, Dayora said at last. We move forward as one fleet. No more splintering of forces. The officers obeyed, but the whispers continued. The humans were a young species. Their technology was crude compared to the Council's. Yet something was happening here that none of the Admiralty could explain. As the fleet pressed deeper into the system, strange readings began to appear on sensors. Faint echoes flickered across the displays, shadows that appeared for an instant, then dissolved before they could be locked. At times, it seemed as though shapes drifted at the edge of vision, there one moment and gone the next. False echoes, one technician said quickly, trying to soothe the growing unease. Interference from the asteroid belt, perhaps? Or reflections from the outer planets? But the words did little to convince. Too many had seen the shadows. Too many had sworn they looked like ships. On the lower decks, the crews whispered among themselves. Tales spread quickly through the vast armada, stories of ghost ships, of silent hunters lurking in the dark, of human fleets waiting unseen. Some dismissed them as nonsense, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Fear grew in the spaces where explanations could not reach. On the bridge, Dayora remained silent as he studied the reports. His instincts, honed over decades of command, told him this was no accident. The humans were hiding something. They were not surrendering. They were not unprepared. They were watching. Admiral, a captain said cautiously, perhaps we should request reinforcements. The Council will not view it as weakness. Not if we... No, Dayora interrupted sharply. His voice cut through the tension like a... The Ninth Fleet does not call for help. We are the Council's arm of judgment. We will carry out our orders. The words steadied the officers, but the silence that followed spoke louder than any command. Beyond the fleet, hidden in the cold darkness of the Oort cloud, human vessels drifted silently. Their hulls reflected no light. Their engines whispered, no signal. They were ghosts in the void, watching every movement, every transmission, every formation of the fleet that had entered their system. For now, they waited. The trap was not yet ready to close. The Ninth Fleet continued forward, unaware that every step brought them deeper into the jaws of a predator that had been underestimated for far too long. The Ninth Fleet advanced toward the heart of Sol's system with unwavering precision. There, Engines burned bright, their formations flawless. Yet beneath the surface of discipline, unease stirred. Too many ships had vanished, too many shadows danced at the edge of sensors. Every officer felt the weight of invisible eyes watching them, though none dared to admit it aloud. Grand Admiral Dayora stood tall at the command dais of the flagship. His gaze swept over the tactical displays, then fixed on Earth. The blue world shimmered with the glow of countless cities, lights glittering in the dark like stars on the surface. It looked peaceful, fragile even, as if it could be crushed beneath the fleet's power in moments. But the Admiral's instincts warned him otherwise. "Prepare orbital bombardment," he ordered. "We will make a demonstration. Their defenses will crumble before us." At once, batteries aligned across the fleet. Energy cannons charged, missiles loaded, rail slugs primed for launch. 1,000 weapons locked onto Earth. Yet before the order could be given, alarms shrieked across the bridge. "Admiral!" a technician cried out. "Contact at the edge of the system! Multiple contacts, unknown configuration!" Dayora's eyes snapped to the display. At the far rim of Sul, near the Oort cloud, sensor ghosts coalesced into something more. Dozens, no, hundreds, of new signatures appeared. Their readings were faint, erratic, as though the ships themselves resisted being scanned. "They were there all along," Dayora murmured, "watching us." The unknown ships moved with sudden precision. From the black of space came streaks of light, kinetic projectiles traveling at a fraction of light speed. They closed the distance faster than the Admiral thought possible. "Evasive maneuvers!" he shouted. The order came too late. Dozens of Council ships erupted into fire as the first volley struck. Shields that had withstood plasma storms and antimatter bombardments collapsed instantly under the sheer force of mass and velocity. Dreadnoughts split in half. Carriers exploded as their fuel reserves ignited. The Ninth Fleet, for the first time in living memory, faltered. "Return fire," Dayora barked. "Target their positions!" Cannons roared. Missiles streaked across the void, but the humans were not where they seemed. Their ships melted back into the shadows, vanishing before weapons could find them. Then another wave struck from a different angle, rail slugs tearing. Through cruisers, drone swarms latching onto carriers, hacking into systems with precision strikes. On the bridge, officers shouted reports in rapid succession. "The second flank is collapsing. We've lost the carrier Vaithra. The dreadnought Caliph has been disabled." Dayora's crest bristled as he clenched his fists. "Hold formation. We are the Ninth Fleet. They cannot match our strength." But the truth was undeniable. The humans were not fighting a conventional battle. They did not meet the Ninth Fleet ship for ship. They struck from the dark, vanished, then struck again from another direction. Every Council tactic, every defense, was rendered useless. On Earth, in hidden command centers buried deep beneath the surface, human leaders watched the unfolding battle with grim satisfaction. Their fleets, long kept secret from the galaxy, moved like hunters in the night. For decades, humanity had studied the Council's tactics. They knew the weaknesses of shields built for energy weapons, the vulnerabilities of fleets trained for open confrontation. Now, those lessons bore fruit. Another volley ripped through the Ninth Fleet. A dreadnought broke apart in silence, its pieces drifting like shattered monuments across the void. Panic spread through the alien crews. For the first time in centuries, they realized they were not the hunters. They were the prey. On the flagship's bridge, the Admiral stared at the chaos. His fleet, his invincible armada, was dying before his eyes. And somewhere in the darkness, unseen yet ever present, humanity whispered its message through action alone. You should have listened. The void blazed with fire as the trap tightened. Ships that once symbolized the Council's unshakable dominance now burned across Sol's dark expanse. Fragments of hulls drifted like shattered monuments, scattering light from distant stars. The Ninth Fleet, The jewel of the council was bleeding. On the flagship's bridge, Grand Admiral Dayora's voice thundered above the chaos. "Form into defensive rings! Shield the carriers! Hold the line!" His officers obeyed, forcing order. Onto the chaos. Surviving ships closed ranks, their shields overlapping to create a wall of energy. Fighters swarmed from carriers, filling the void with tiny pinpricks of light. Missiles and beams lashed out at the shadows. For a moment, it seemed the tide might. Steady. The humans could not hide forever. The council's numbers were still vast. But the illusion lasted only minutes. From the darkness came another strike, an entire wave of projectiles that tore into the defensive ring. Kinetic slugs ripped through overlapping shields as if they were paper. Human drones surged forward, darting past fighters, burying themselves into carrier hulls before detonating with precision blasts. "The second ring has collapsed," an officer cried. "Carriers Seroth and Javal are gone. Patch the breach," Dayora roared. His crest bristled, his eyes burning with fury. "Do not give them ground." But the breach could not be patched. Human warships appeared again, this time closer. Their designs were unlike anything the Council had catalogued. Sleek, angular vessels with no visible energy signatures, their surfaces dark as the void itself. They struck with ruthless efficiency, unloading railgun barrages and drone swarms before vanishing once more. The Ninth Fleet fired back with everything they had. Energy lances scorched the dark. Torpedoes raced through the void. For every human vessel destroyed, however, 3 council ships fell. The imbalance grew unbearable. "Admiral, the communications net is failing," another officer reported. "Our long-range channels are jammed." Static filled the bridge as signals across the fleet collapsed. Messages flickered into broken fragments, then into silence. The Ninth Fleet was deaf, blind, and alone. Panic began to spread. Crews whispered of ghosts in the void, of weapons beyond reason, of an enemy that had been underestimated for too long. For centuries, the Ninth Fleet had been a symbol of fear. Now that fear had turned inward. On Earth, human command centers watched the chaos unfold. Generals studied displays with grim satisfaction. "They are breaking," one said quietly. "Their formations are collapsing faster than expected." "They underestimated us," another replied. "They believed their strength absolute. Now they know what it means to challenge a world that has survived against every threat it faced." Back in orbit, the slaughter continued. Council dreadnoughts, once proud symbols of unshakable power, were reduced to wreckage. Carriers that had launched invasions across half the galaxy burned silently. Frigates and destroyers scattered, fleeing into the dark, only to vanish as human ships pursued and erased them. "Admiral," a captain whispered from the bridge. His voice trembled, despite his rank. "We are being annihilated." Dayora's claws gripped the railing, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Red markers spread like a tide, swallowing his fleet piece by piece. His pride, his certainty, began to falter. But his voice remained iron. "No," he said firmly. "We fight. We will not give them Sol without a price." The order rang out, and the remnants of the fleet surged forward in one last desperate push. They charged into the shadows, cannons blazing, determined to strike back, but the humans were ready. They had studied their enemy, predicted their moves, and prepared every counter. The final charge was met with overwhelming fire. Rail guns split, dreadnoughts apart. Drone swarms consumed carriers. Hackers broke into ship systems, turning weapons against their own allies. Within hours, the mighty Ninth Fleet was no more. What had entered Sol as the most powerful armada in galactic history was reduced to silence and drifting wreckage. At the heart of the chaos, the flagship still endured. Dayora stood amidst the ruin, his heart heavy with a realization that shook him more than defeat. The humans had not just fought back, they had planned for this. They had been waiting, and now they were no longer the overlooked. They were something far more dangerous. The Ninth Fleet had entered Sol's system with unmatched grandeur. It had been a wall of steel and fire, an unstoppable force meant to crush humanity's defiance in a single strike. Now it was gone. The once mighty armada had been erased from the stars, its vessels reduced to drifting wreckage, its crews swallowed by silence. But beyond Sol, the galaxy did not yet know. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, the delegates waited impatiently. Days had passed since the Ninth Fleet's departure and no word had come. Normally, a fleet of such size maintained constant reports, status updates, progress transmissions, even simple signals of position. Now, there was nothing, not a whisper. At first, the Council dismissed the silence as interference. Sol's system was known for its dense asteroid belts, its storms of radiation near the sun. Surely it was a delay, nothing more. But as more days passed, unease crept into even the most arrogant voices. Perhaps their transmissions were disrupted, one delegate suggested nervously. Impossible, another countered. The Ninth Fleet has the most advanced communication systems in the galaxy. Nothing short of deliberate interference could silence them. The presiding Archon silenced the debate with a gesture. The Ninth Fleet will report when it is ready. They are not to be doubted. Humanity cannot stand against such might. The words sounded confident, but even the Archon's voice carried a strain of unease. Elsewhere, whispers began to spread. Traders returning from the outer reaches claimed to have seen strange flashes in the skies near Sol, distant explosions that lit the void for brief moments before fading into darkness. Others spoke of wreckage drifting on the system's edge, unidentifiable, fragments that bore the unmistakable markings of council ships. The rumors grew with each retelling. The humans had ambushed the fleet. The fleet had been destroyed. No one survived. Some whispered that the humans had unleashed forbidden weapons, technologies thought impossible. Others claimed the Terrans had allies hidden in the dark and unseen. Power that had risen to protect them. On distant worlds, fear took root. The Ninth Fleet had been more than a military force. It had been a symbol. Its mere presence was enough to end rebellions, to silence uprisings, to remind every species of the Council's unshakable dominance. Now that symbol was cracked. If it could vanish without a trace, what did that mean for the Council's power? Back on Earth, deep within secure bunkers, human leaders watched the silence spread across the stars. Their fleets returned to hidden stations, their engines dim, their signals cloaked. The wreckage of the Ninth Fleet drifted quietly in Sol's dark reaches, left untouched as a monument to what had been attempted. One general stood before the displays, arms folded. "They will search for answers," he said quietly. "They will not believe the truth at first." Another nodded. "Let them wonder. Let the silence speak louder than any words." In the following weeks, smaller council scout groups attempted to enter Sol, desperate to find answers. None returned. They vanished into the same silence that had swallowed the Ninth Fleet. Soon, the council stopped sending scouts altogether. The risk was too great. Whispers turned to fear, and fear turned to fractures. Within the council, voices rose in heated debate. Some demanded a second fleet, larger than the first, to avenge the Ninth and restore order. Others warned that such a move would doom them all, that the humans had proven themselves far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. For the first time in centuries, the Council was divided. Across the galaxy, smaller empires and independent worlds began to reconsider their loyalties. If the Ninth Fleet had truly been destroyed, then the balance of power was shifting. Perhaps the Council was not invincible. Perhaps new powers were rising, and at the center of it all, humanity remained silent. No speeches, no declarations, no boasts, only silence. the kind of silence that makes the powerful question their strength, and the weak begin to hope. In that silence, the legend of Sol began to grow. The silence had stretched too long. The Ninth Fleet, the Council's most powerful weapon, had been gone for weeks. Delegates who once laughed at Earth's ultimatum now spoke in hushed tones, their confidence crumbling beneath the weight of uncertainty. Rumors spread like fire through dry grass, and with each passing day the absence of answers became more damning. It was in this atmosphere of fear and doubt that the message came. It began as a whisper, a faint transmission picked up simultaneously, across dozens of systems. At first, technicians assumed it was static, but the signal repeated, growing stronger, impossible to block or distort. Soon it was undeniable. A message, broadcast on every known channel, carried on frequencies the Council could not jam. The voice was human, calm, clear, and without hesitation. Your fleets entered our home. They are gone. There will be no next time. Stay out of Sol. No threats, no demands, no boasts. Just those simple words. Across the galaxy, worlds froze as the message echoed through the void. In council chambers, the delegates sat in stunned silence, their minds struggling to grasp what they had heard. It was not just the words themselves. It was the certainty within them, the quiet finality of a species that had done exactly what it promised. In the aftermath, chaos erupted. Some delegates shouted in anger, demanding retaliation. "We must not allow this insult to stand!" cried one, his voice rising above the noise. "If we hesitate, the entire galaxy will see us as weak." Others responded with equal fury, but in the opposite direction. "Weak?" another delegate countered. "The Ninth Fleet is gone, entirely gone. Do you not understand what that means? Humanity has already proven they can do what none believe possible. To attack them again would be to court annihilation." The chamber fractured into arguments, accusations, and fear. The presiding Archon, who had once dismissed Earth as a candle, flame before a storm, now sat in silence. His face betrayed nothing, but his hands trembled beneath the desk. Beyond the council, ordinary citizens across the galaxy spoke of humanity in whispers. Some feared them, believing the Terrans had unlocked weapons beyond imagination. Others admired them, calling them a symbol of resistance against a council that had ruled unchecked for centuries. For the first time, humanity's name carried weight across the stars. On Earth, the leaders of the United Terran Directorate reviewed the message with measured satisfaction. In a secure chamber, the envoy who had delivered the ultimatum weeks earlier stood before the Council of Generals. "They will not doubt us again," one general said quietly. The envoy nodded. "No, they will fear us. That fear will keep them at bay." Another general leaned forward, her expression hard. "But fear also breeds hatred. They will not forget this. When they gather the will, they will come again." "Then we will be ready," the envoy replied. His eyes held the same calm certainty as his voice. "The galaxy must understand. We will not be conquered. We will not bow. If they force our hand again, they will meet the same fate as the Ninth Fleet." The room fell into silence. Every leader there knew the truth. Humanity had chosen a path from which there was no turning back. The galaxy would either fear them into respect or destroy itself trying to challenge them. Back in the stars, the message continued to repeat. On every channel, in every system, the same words carried across the void. "Your fleets entered our home. They are gone. There will be no next time. Stay out of Sol." The galaxy listened, and for the first time in living memory, the Council felt the weight of something greater than fear. They felt inevitability. Humanity had arrived. The message echoed for months across the stars, replaying endlessly on every frequency the Council had once controlled. Entire civilizations, some allied to the Council, others merely observers, heard it. The words became a line etched into galactic history. Your fleets entered our home. They are gone. There will be no next time. Stay out of Sol. The Council tried to suppress the transmission, but it was futile. Humanity had embedded it into the very infrastructure of interstellar communications, a clever act that ensured their warning would repeat like a heartbeat throughout the galaxy. No one could ignore it. At first there was disbelief. Lesser powers whispered that the Ninth Fleet might still be alive, simply delayed. But as weeks turned to months and the silence persisted, denial turned to unease, and unease became fear. The great powers of the galaxy, empires that had bowed to the Council for centuries, began to question their loyalty. If the Ninth Fleet could be destroyed in Sol, what hope did they have if humanity turned its attention outward? For the first time in living memory, the Council's grip weakened. A border world far from Sol, a council governor sat in a quiet office, listening to the transmission for the 100th time. His staff waited for orders, but none came. Finally, he whispered what many across the galaxy had begun to realize. They are not a people to conquer. They are a people to leave alone. The council itself fractured under the pressure. Some demanded vengeance, urging the construction of a 10th fleet even greater than the last. Others resisted, warning that to throw more lives and resources into Sol would be to invite disaster. Meetings that had once been displays of unity became arenas of shouting and accusations. The illusion of absolute control was gone. Meanwhile, humanity watched from the shadows. Their fleets did not march across the stars, nor did they conquer neighboring worlds. They simply fortified Sol, turning the home system into a fortress unlike anything seen before. Hidden stations were revealed, shipyards expanded and automated. Defenses filled the void. Earth's people, once divided by borders and politics, stood united under a single banner: survival. The envoy who had delivered the ultimatum stood again before the Terran Directorate, delivering his report. His tone was calm, but his words carried the weight of history. "The galaxy listens," he said. "They may fear us, they may hate us, but they now respect us. For the first time, humanity is not underestimated. We are not prey. We are a power." The generals nodded. They knew the truth. This was only the beginning. In the decades to come, legends would grow around the destruction of the Ninth Fleet. Some claimed the humans had harnessed weapons beyond known science. Others insisted they had allies in the void, ancient forces awakened to defend them. The truth was simpler, yet far more unsettling. Humanity had fought with everything it had, and in doing so had proven that even the strongest armada in the galaxy could fall. Among the people of Earth there was no celebration, only vigilance. Monuments were built not to boast, but to remember. Generations were taught the lesson their ancestors had carved into the stars, that survival was bought with sacrifice, and that freedom was worth any cost. In time, the Council rebuilt some of its strength, but it never recovered its aura of invincibility. And though skirmishes erupted on the edges of space, no major fleet ever again attempted to breach Sol. The galaxy had learned humanity had not sought empire, but it had won something: greater respect, born of fear carved from silence. The Ninth Fleet had vanished into the void, and with it, the illusion that Earth was weak. Now, when children on distant worlds looked up at the stars, they whispered the same word with awe and caution: humans. And so the balance of power shifted, forever altered by a single ultimatum, a vanished fleet, and the silence that followed. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as a force no one could ignore. For in the galaxy's memory, one truth remained. Unshakable, the Ninth Fleet entered Sol. It never returned.